You're listening to the Bear in Mind podcast, episode number 85.
A podcast uncovering identity, color, and love, where driving yourself crazy is totally sane and curable. Now your host, T. Vias.
Today we're talking about frustration, and in particular, what it is and what you can do when you're feeling frustrated. Because frustration is one of those emotions that has a cycle to it, particularly probably in one area of your life, whether that's your career, your family, friends, a situation like that. It keeps coming back. And by the end of this, I'm going to talk about how you can kind of get out of that cycle of frustration in a situation that you continuously feel frustrated in. So first up, frustration. What is it? And so it's related to anger with a nuance. There's a little element of it that I actually think is a little bit more uncomfortable than feeling angry. And that is that we are upset, but we also have the belief that the situation we're in is not changeable. We can't get a different result, or we can't get out of it, or you're just kind of stuck. A lot of people like to say, well, I'm stuck, and that's kind of usually the synonym for frustration. So you feel angry, plus you don't think you can do anything about feeling angry. And that is really not a great situation to be in. It doesn't feel good. And that's kind of where the cycle comes, because if you believe that you can't change anything about your situation, the anger comes up again and again and again. And then maybe sometimes the frustration can escalate to a more intense emotion. So frustration usually goes along with the word with. I'm frustrated with, fill in the blank. I'm frustrated with my boss. I'm frustrated with my job. I'm frustrated with my kids. We often have this frustration, and it's always something usually outside of us. And it's a situation that we really believe that we can't change it. We can't change the situation with our kids. I'm stuck here with my kids. I'm stuck in this job because I need to pay off a certain amount of debt. I'm stuck here. And I want to say that's never really the case. And I'm going to show you how you can get out of that and get out of that cycle from frustration. And we're frustrated with somebody else or with a situation. And what we tend to do is the exact opposite of what will get us out of that situation. That's the irony of feeling frustrated. So when we're feeling frustrated, let's say with our job, so a lot of times we might try to change the job and keep changing the job, changing careers or something like that. We keep trying to change the situation, and the frustration comes back in the next job, in the new career. And the way this kind of manifests itself with people is if we're frustrated with our partner, we will then, even though we believe that the situation is not changeable, we then go try to change it by changing our partner, getting them to change their behaviors, getting them to not put their shoes in the hallway. We're frustrated with that. We're frustrated with the fact that they're not as supportive as we would like them to be. And we tend to go about it. Sometimes we have arguments with the other person, trying to get them to change and hoping that explaining ourselves so that they understand and they change will get us out of it. We will then not be frustrated, and because we told somebody, hey, the situation needs to change, and now we want them to change the situation. We want them to change their behaviors, and then we'll stop feeling frustrated. And that never really works in relationships, because even if somebody does hear you and they change the behavior, they usually change it for the short term. And they usually go back to their habitual ways of going about things. Or if you've never really looked at the cycle of frustration within yourself, you probably will find something else that frustrates you and then go about trying to change them. And if that's the cycle that you have, that you keep going about trying to change that person, and then they start to get frustrated, and then they don't change their behaviors. And then now you have two people in a relationship that are cycling in frustration. And that's not very fun. That is definitely not a fun situation to be in. And so if you notice, those solutions are really dead-end solutions. We, of course, intellectually know this, that we can't change other people, yet we still go about doing it. And the reason we go about doing it is because we're actually believing that the situation we're in is not changeable, meaning we can't change it. We can't do anything about it. So therefore, somebody else or something else has to change. A job needs to change. A behavior of somebody else needs to change. And we can end up feeling quite powerless when we are relying on other people to change so that our situation changes, so how we feel changes. So we want other people or the situation change so that therefore we can feel better. Therefore, we won't feel frustrated anymore. So if we intellectually understand that changing the situation, the person, doesn't really help us get out of feeling frustrated, it keeps us in there, what do we do if we get it, but then we don't actually behave in a way that helps us get out of the frustration? The thing is not to take action from that feeling of frustration. Whenever we feel it, and it could be as simple as just saying it, I feel so frustrated with my job, I feel so frustrated with my kids. Whenever you catch yourself saying that, you automatically know that you're frustrated. And so that any sort of action that you take from there will be in an effort to control somebody else, will be in an effort to try to go about changing situations all externally around you so that you stop feeling this way. The other way that you can recognize this is it's masked in the word should or should have. Oh, my job shouldn't be like this, or he shouldn't behave this way, or my kids should obey me. Whenever we catch ourselves kind of saying, well, should, and you can catch yourself when you are maybe like venting to a friend about your job or your kids or something like that, see how many times you say should. And even while you're listening to this, are you thinking about a situation where you're like, well, it shouldn't be that way at work. My boss shouldn't yell at me. My boss shouldn't give me tasks the evening before the weekend or right before I'm going to leave on holiday. And that's it. That's all you need to do is to recognize whenever you're feeling frustrated, whenever you hear yourself speaking to another person or in your head saying, I feel frustrated, or someone should be like this, or a situation should be different than it actually is, when you're arguing with what reality is presenting itself to you, that your kids are actually screaming or your boss is actually yelling at you, and that's your reality, recognizing that you feel frustrated and then owning that frustration. What does owning your frustration mean? Well, frustration is going to come from that belief. It's anger with the belief you're thinking that you can't change that situation because somebody else or the situation is happening and I have no control over it. And the truth is you have control over the frustration. The truth is you can change something and you can get unstuck. You just can't see it because you're feeling frustrated. And owning it means that you can recognize that your frustration is coming from that belief right there, that I can't change it because the situation should be different than it is. And when you can say the situation and see the situation, this is what's happening. This is my reality. Yes, my boss is yelling at me. And accepting that that's happening and that you're frustrated is coming from your thinking, your belief that this situation is not changeable. That's ownership. When you can separate out those two things, boss is yelling, I'm thinking that the situation should be different, and therefore I'm frustrated because I think that this situation should be different. And that is really all you need to do, is to own that, because one of the great things is once your brain can separate out that and not have this internal battle that things should be different than with your reality, your brain's not fighting that battle. So if it's not fighting that battle, it opens up and gives you your options. Your options will become so clear because the frustration will you get a little break, like opening up a window and getting a little bit of light in. And then you can start to see some options other than trying to change a situation, control other people. That's all I have for you today, and I'll check back with you next week.
Thanks for listening. Listen for a new episode next Tuesday by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Bye for now.